Now, anyway, on today's show, I want to talk about this book that I have received recently. This is a book that is very important. I recommend that all of my listeners go out and get this book, especially my people of color, black people, even white people. This book talks about something that I touched on the last show. On the last show, I was talking about why whites are in a certain position financially and why blacks are in a certain position financially, as far as housing and living in the suburbs and living in the ghettos and living in the inner cities. And on last week's show, I really touched the tip of the iceberg. After getting this book, I was literally blown away. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't know about the game as far as race relations in the country. It was deeper than I thought. There's this book called Sundown Towns. It's a book by a man named James Loewen. He's a professor at the University of Vermont, and he lives in Washington, D.C. And he has another book that I read before that I've had for a few years. It's called Lies My Teacher Told Me, which was a great book. And James Loewen, in his book Sundown Towns, he talks about thousands and thousands of towns and cities in America that specifically kept black people out from about 1890 to 1968. And actually, some of the towns still keep black people out in subtle ways. But this book breaks the shit down so deep, and it exposes things that a lot of people simply didn't know. Now, a lot of older white folks know about this. A lot of younger whites don't know about it, but a lot of older white people know about it. And the author of the book is a white guy. A lot of times when a black man comes out with a book like this, he's labeled as Afrocentric. And a lot of Afrocentric, quote-unquote, books don't get major publishing like they should. So it's kind of a gift and a curse. See, a lot of times we don't validate information until it comes from a white guy. But on the same side of the coin, on the other side of the coin, a lot of white guys, their books are easily, they can get their books published faster. And this is one of the few white men who really tells the truth about race relations. One of the few in history who talks about history that I really respect their opinion. This dude is the truth with it. He breaks it down, and he's white, so y'all who need validation from white folks, you have it from him, and he's breaking it down. When white folks are telling you what the deal is as far as race relations and how fucked up white society has been, it's some real shit. People always talk about the American dream. What is the American dream? The American dream, they say, is liberty, justice for all that bullshit. The real American dream is owning a home and achieving a certain level of wealth. The real American dream is real estate. People always tell you, you get money this, you get money that way, invest in stocks, invest in this. The biggest investment, the most important investment anybody can make, and I'm talking to my people of color here, is real estate. Because real estate, the property value usually always goes up. You always gain some type of equity. So you really, really, really need to get real estate. Real estate is very, very, very important. And this is the underlying foundation of why I'm talking about this book. The reason why a lot of whites are in a certain position they're in today, and a lot of blacks are in a certain position they are in today, is because one group had access to real estate and the other group did not. A lot of whites always sit back and look at blacks and say, well, damn, how come you guys haven't made any progress? Slavery is over. Slavery's been over for 140 years. You have civil rights. So the general consensus is black people are in a position they're in now. A lot of black people are living in ghettos and inner cities, and white people are living in the suburbs because white people must be smarter. Or black people just must not be mentally superior as they should be. Or black people are mentally inferior. That's the general consensus that people try to relay. And on the last show I did, I talked about that and I debunked some of that. And this book, Sundown Town, it goes deeper. This book talks about cities in America, thousands of cities, that had a unwritten rule. Some rules were written, but basically it was a general understanding that black people had to be out of these towns by sundown. This is some deep shit. And I knew about a few cities. I knew about 10, 15 cities that had race riots and kind of ran black people out. And I've talked about it on this show many times. I've talked about Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood, a couple of places in Illinois. But again, that was just the tip of the iceberg. According to this book, there were thousands and thousands of cities all around America that ran niggers the fuck out. Thousands of them. And this book lists a lot of them. And it has newspaper clippings. It has flyers from back in those times. A lot of information that a lot of people tried to keep buried and hidden. This guy has yanked the covers off that shit. You have to get that book. But like I was saying, man, real estate is very important, and a lot of black people were denied access to certain real estate. That's why white people are in a position they're in now. See, the thing is, after slavery, directly after slavery, during the Reconstruction times, like 1865 till around 1890, black people were actually doing all right. Because after the Civil War, everybody was kind of patriotic. And a lot of black people moved up north, and white people kind of welcomed them in the communities. Then at around 1890 and around the turn of the century, around the 1900s, things started changing. Things went dramatically wrong. All of a sudden, a lot of black people were doing well. They were doing a little bit too well. And that started fucking with a lot of white folks. Because, like I said before, a lot of the people in America, the white folks were either rich or they were working class poor. There was really no in between. And the rich white folks, they didn't give a damn who worked for them. Long as you made money, long as you produced. And blacks were used to working for free. So any kind of wage would be cool for them. They're like, cool, you're going to pay me for doing what I did for free for the last 300 years? Sure. As a matter of fact, I'll work for less than this white guy. That's where the problem came in. That's where the problem came in. The white people of that time, they said that there was a Negro problem. The Negro problem was black people were taking jobs from working class whites. And a lot of times, again, they were doing better. And the black people who were doing better, they were the main targets. White people would literally burn their homes down out of hate, out of jealousy. I've talked about the Tulsa, Oklahoma race riot, where there were many prosperous black people who were run out of Tulsa and their community was bombed, literally bombed. It's the first time in American history where civilians were bombed. But that was the Negro problem back then, that niggas was taking jobs from white folks.